Hey guys, it's Faye from Solarflow and I'm back with another video. Today's topic is Ask Me Anything. These are the little bits and bobs. These are the questions, suggestions that you guys have either been commenting on in my other videos or when I had asked what specifically you want me to look into that you had been commenting about. And these are the questions that once I had looked into it and I had channeled the information on and I had seen it's interesting and there's a lot here, but it's not quite enough to devote an entire video to. We're gonna be addressing a lot of those things in this video. So there's lots of interesting different topics that we're gonna cover today. And also here's another thing to keep in mind. If you have specifically asked a question and it's not answered here, it's because that question has ample information that came through that will be its own video. So for example, I know some of you wanted to know about what's going on with Balenciaga. After looking into it, I realized, oh wait, there's actually a lot that can be kind of like unpacked here in not just connection to Balenciaga, but like the entire fashion industry as a whole and all of the brands. So that's gonna be its own video for another day. Not that I'm not like giving the attention to it in this video. But I try to be really good in responding to all of you guys' comments on YouTube. So if there's something that did slip through the cracks, please let me know. And I'm sure that this is gonna be perhaps like an ongoing series that we're gonna get to do because there's always new things that are coming out that people want me to look into. And while the information is probably very interesting, it might not be enough to make its own video out of. All right, now, before we get into it, one other thing, look down below in the description box and you will see there are timestamps. So if there is something that you really want to know about, you can of course click down to see the answer of specifically that was discussed. But I also would hope that you would go back and you would watch the entire video because there's lots of cool things that are going to be in this video. So stick around, it's going to be fun, I promise. Okay, so first question. What happened to the Malaysian flight that disappeared a few years ago? So it's actually flight number MH370. And for anyone who's not familiar or doesn't remember, I think it was like in 2016, a Malaysian flight took off, changed courses, and then vanished. So what happened to it? So I'm going to talk about physically what happened to it, and I'm going to also talk about behind the veil, what were the energies that contributed to it going down. Because I know there was maybe like some speculation that perhaps it had like landed somewhere and they had like stripped the plane and they were going to repurpose it and use it for something nefarious. That's not what I got. So what I actually got is that when the pilot of that plane changed courses, he actually did crash it and he took it down into the ocean. That is tragic and that is sad. But what's interesting is what was the motivation that behind the veil that motivated him to do that. So what I was actually shown was that this is a karmic rebalancing. And what a karmic rebalancing means is that specifically in this case, the passengers that were on the plane were villagers from a few hundred years ago during the time of the Salem witch trials, where all of those people were villagers and they had actually started this idea or pushed for one particular person in their village who was the pilot in a previous incarnation, was a witch and was burned at the stake. So this is a karmic rebalancing from something that happened a few hundred years ago. Because if you think about it, there's very, very few times that we could say there's one very, very notable instance or incident where one person has so much power over other people. And what is the reason for that? So the reason for this in particular is that the villagers, it could even have been like the stewards and the stewardesses, they were as well, maybe they were like the loudest voices that were pushing for this person that they assumed was a witch to be burned at the stake. And because all of those souls that were on the airplane were responsible for taking this life, in this incarnation, this pilot took the life of these other peoples. So the slate has been cleaned. There is no more karma between the people that were on the flight and the pilot. Or another way of looking at it would be the villagers in the village and the witch that they had burned at the stake. The karma is now clear. Okay, next question is, did we land on the moon? Now this is a very interesting one, and this is also a very loaded question. So, yes and no. What I mean by that is, yes, we have been to the moon, but no, it was not when it was first televised in the 1960s. So the way of looking at this is that everything that happens in the world is a stage, is a movie. And there's who's involved with the movie. You have a director, you have actors, you have the people that are doing the sound, you have the editors, you have the producers. So there's all of these pieces that come together to comprise movies. The actors that we see are only playing their part. But let's look at the big picture as a whole. Who was the script writer and who was directing the movie? Because if we're going to acknowledge that there's something like a cabal or a shadow government, they go the other way around. There's the shadow government is below the cabal. And then even above the cabal are the puppet masters that are writing the script. So for whatever reason, they had written that at this time in the 1960s, when there was a so-called space race between the United States and Russia, that it was our time on the world stage in this movie that we were going to get to space first, for whatever reason. So yes, we have been to space. Yes, we have been to the moon. No, it was not at that time. That was like an actual movie production. And again, the reason that they had done it was because according to the script of what they had written for the world stage, it was going to be the United States that was going to be in the lead at that time, right? The United States, look at it like it was a character. The United States was going to be the main character in this so-called space race with Russia. And Russia was going to be the supporting cast instead. If you've gone back, and I'll link it down below, if you actually have not seen my video on Earth's shape, that can be, and NASA, that can be a really, really interesting video, because as I have discussed there is a firmament. And the firmament is not something that you can launch a rocket through. That's not to say that we haven't been to space. We have, but we have been accessing space through portals, not getting into rocket ships, blasting off and going off into space. That has been for show. That has not been the actual way in which we have been accessing other planets or other locations in space. The reason that that is done is that is to put a limitation and a cap on what our minds can actually perceive or imagine. And it's where we're kind of almost being like spoon-fed, or a better way of looking at it would actually be, we have been mind controlled on what's possible. So we have been told the way that you can get to space is in a rocket ship. And that is to take our attention and our awareness and our focus or any thoughts of what could be otherwise away from the actual ways in which we can get to space. So it's a classic case of misdirection. Look here, not there. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. Next question that came up is a behind the veil analysis of what's going on in the modeling industry. Now, if we're going to continue this idea of there being script writers on the world stage, what's the agenda that they're pushing? What's the idea that they're promoting? And what are the actors that they're going to utilize to push forth that agenda? And when I was looking into this, I was very much called to the 1980s. I'm going to touch on the 1980s, and then I'm going to touch also on today, because there's been another big shift on what's going on, like what's been written on the world stage in the modeling industry. But I was really, really directed to the 1980s and was shown that in the 1980s, you had like these healthier, all-American looking models, right? They had like the long flowing hair, and they had like these healthy looking bodies. And then what happened in the 1990s is we had this new trend that was heralded in on the back of Kate Moss, heroin chic. So the models were no longer looking quite so healthy. They didn't have that beautiful, healthy, long hair. Now they had the straighter, stringier hair. They didn't have like all of that makeup that women were wearing in the 80s, right? Like the magenta lipstick, the heavy blush, the heavy blue eyeshadow, none of that. It was pared down faces and these skinny little stick bodies walking down the runway. Interesting, right? So when I was doing a little bit more of this energetic digging into like, what? Why? What was notable about that? I was shown the connection to the society, and specifically women's places in society in the 1980s. And what I mean by that is, in the 1980s, a great number of women actually joined the workforce, right? So now, if previously they had perhaps been mothers, and they had been taking care of the home, and they had been wives, and they had been, just, and again, it's not to say just, because it's actually the hardest work that a woman can do. But if that was if that was the way that they were operating, that they now took on an additional new role in the 1980s, where women were leaving the home and they were going into work. And with that, the way that the fashion was in the and I will remember this always. So I had remember like going into, I had lived in New York at that time, in the suburbs, and had gone like into the city with my parents, right? And if you've ever been to New York City, parking is not a joke there. So what you would do is, if you had to like just do a quick little errand or whatever, instead of paying like at a parking garage or circling around the block forever until you found parking, you would have somebody in like the passenger seat, and they would stay in the passenger seat, and then if they needed to move the car, because you're like illegally parked or double parked, whatever, they would hop into the driver's side seat and they would move their car. So I would be in the car, in the back seat, my dad would be hopping around doing something, my mom would be in the passenger seat, and I would just watch the world go by. And we'll never forget the way that women dressed back then. Power suits, right? So what's a power suit? It's a boxy blazer jacket with big shoulder pads and with a boxy skirt, not like a sexy pencil skirt. And women were wearing like stockings with socks and sneakers that they would walk, let's say, to and from the train in. And then when they would get to their office, they would take off their sneakers and their socks, and they would put on like sensible looking dress shoes. But watching this symphony of power suits walking around the city, very, very boxy, right? So it was erasing a sense of femininity that was there, because the women were now competing with men. So they were wearing boxy suits, just like men would wear boxy suits. But they would be wearing like their sensible sneakers, and they were walking very powerfully, very purposefully, right? So there was this huge change in society. Number one, when women went into the workforce in huge numbers in the 1980s, and they were competing with men all of a sudden, in addition to all of the other responsibilities that they had and all of the other hats that they would wear as well. Now, so there may be just starting to get the hang energetically of what their life is like and how to balance this new additional responsibility. And then what happens is what women were being fed visually suddenly changed. So it's not healthy looking models, it's emaciated models. And that was done to sow the seeds of discontent within the women who were maybe just feeling like they were getting their groove on. Okay, so now I'm, in addition to being a mother and being a spouse and being a householder and being a caretaker and all of those other things that I am, now I'm also a worker. But now they cannot be a worker in boxy looking suits. They have to drop a bunch of weight because what is being shown to them in magazines and on the catwalk, and even the fashion that went along with that, was different than what they had been perceiving in the 1980s. And it was done very intentionally to sow seeds of discontent. And what I actually saw is that with this seeds of discontent came a lot of trouble in relationships, and it actually led to a great number of divorces. And divorce is also part of a big agenda. Not a topic for this video. That is probably a topic for maybe a part 2 of an AMA, or maybe when I start to really look into it, there's more than enough information there for that, to be its own video as well. But that was very much the agenda. It's a long con, so to say, right? Where women think it's one thing, and then 5 or 10 years later, they turn around and they suddenly realize it's not what they thought it was, it's something completely different. And that's very much the way the modeling agency, the gardeners are here. We're gonna make do. We will push through and we will persevere. But that's very much the way the modeling industry is designed, where because it is it's visual and it's connected to things that women might be more interested in, such as the fashion industry as a whole, or clothing, or media, or things like that. It is to push a particular agenda. It is to drive a certain narrative. It is to permeate women's minds and get them to see and perceive the world in a different kind of a way. And that is the purpose of the modeling industry. Now, I'm not going to go all through the entire genealogy of the modeling industry from the 1980s till today. I'm just going to say that very, very notably right now, we also have this change where what we are seeing is where the so-called beauty standards have changed. But they've changed in a way where now what is being put forth and promoted is what some might consider to be unhealthy. And what unhealthy means is where we're not representing what we would call to be a regular sized woman. But it's now where we are promoting women that are heavy. One could even say they might be considered obese. And that is driving a narrative of an unhealthy society. So here's the thing. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that we should not be inclusive. There should be a chair at the table for everybody. We should definitely be representing all kinds of bodies. And when I was doing a little Black Friday shopping, I was actually looking through some sites, and I see it's very body inclusive. They are now actually showing a lot of different body types modeling clothing. That's healthy. What's unhealthy is where we are taking a unhealthy body type, which is well beyond the average woman's body, and we are holding it up for review, and we are saying this is what women should be looking like. So that's what it is. It's where we are now promoting Like, let's say we're in the 1990s, we had like heroin chic, and that was too unhealthy that way. Now we're correcting, and we're going too far unhealthy in the other direction. And that is, again, also done by design. Everything that the modeling industry does is to put forth an agenda or a narrative, and the models that are being casted, they are just the actors, right? But look at it as, who is the writer of this particular story, and what are they trying to convey with what is being written? So it's almost like, don't look at the models. They're just playing their role. They're doing their part. That's their job. Look at what is going on behind that. What's the agenda or the narrative that is being put forth? Because that's exactly what the modeling industry is, okay? And I don't ever like to spoon feed. I like to give you guys food for thought. So let me know if that answers your question, or if there's perhaps more that we can look into. Okay. This is a very, very short one. Very, very easy. Is the medical medium the real deal? The answer is yes, he is. He is absolutely a medical medium. The information that he has been bringing forth is to counterbalance the unhealthy relationship that people perhaps have with big pharma. Because as I've discussed with you, old systems are going to be changing. So he is kind of like the first one to the mountaintop. He has kind of like seen the way, he's mapped it out, he's gotten there. And he is now, with the information that he is disseminating, he is giving people like the roadmap, like, oh, if you want to, here's a way of looking at it, if you want to climb Mount Everest, you can be your own Sherpa, right? Big Pharma doesn't have to be your Sherpa. You can be your own Sherpa. Here, as the medical medium, I have written the map for you. You no longer need Big Pharma to govern your health and well-being. So that is what his primary purpose is in. He is writing the map for the rest of us, that as we continue to start to wake up and as we continue to start to disconnect from the old systems, there's already going to be a new system in place that we can, I see there's another way. And that's very much what his role is. He is presenting the other way. Okay, what do I want to move on to next? How about this? Is who we marry predetermined? Really good question. So no, who we marry is not predetermined. In any particular incarnation, we have any number of potential mates that we could partner up with. We might have, for example, agreed in a particular, before we come into an incarnation, we have, for example, agreed to the big lessons that we are going to learn, but we still have free will in the day-to-day. Who we marry, who we date, where we go for dinner, what job we have, all of those things, we still have free will, and free will reigns supreme. So if, for example, you were meant to have a big life lesson in a particular partnership, that might, and if you do not, let's say, choose to go into that relationship or into that partnership, you're still going to get the life lesson. It's just going to come from someplace else, because the theme of what you agreed to come in and experience has been predetermined, and you've agreed to it as well. That it's not just where it's like God has said, like giving you your assignment, these are the lessons you're going to learn in this life. No, it's what do I want to move past? What karma do I want to clear? Am I up for clearing this karma in this lifetime, or do I want to have an easier load in this lifetime, so that way I'll have more reserves for the next lifetime, which maybe is going to be more challenging? So we definitely have free will, and that includes our partners, our spouses, who we have a relationship with, all of those things, free will. Okay, I hope that answers that question. Similarly to that, I was also asked, is our soul living multiple timelines, and can we timeline jump? That's also a really good question. So as I had actually discussed in, I think it was my video on Area 51 and aliens, we are actually having, yes, we are living multiple timelines simultaneously. So what we can perceive, or what we would think to be a previous incarnation, is actually a life that is happening concurrently with ours. We are just not meant to understand it or experiencing it that way. And just like that, just like we are living previous lifetimes simultaneously, we are also living future versions simultaneously. So the way that we have kind of been programmed to believe that time operates is it's linear. It's in a straight line. We have past, present, future. It's a line, and that's it. But the way that time actually operates, and our lives within it, is imagine the rings of Saturn. It's different, our lives, all of our different incarnations are different points along the rings. And we may not be able to see an incarnation that we're having on a ring that's opposite where we are, because it's in a different location. We cannot see it with our physical eyes, and we're also not meant to. So the things that we perceive as being perhaps memories of previous incarnations might not be memories of previous incarnations, but they can be flashes, or where we're getting insight, or we're seeing beyond our own personal veil, where we are getting flashes of lifetimes that we are living in a different time period. So not necessarily where it's behind us, it's concurrent, but we're seeing behind the veil of it, and that we understand it to be happening in actual real time. Now, can we timeline jump? The way that timeline jumping has been shown to me is not necessarily, I think maybe in the way that the question was asked, where we can jump into a different time period altogether. That would be considered time travel. And again, you can go back and watch my video on time travel if you want to get greater insight into that. I'm not going to bring that whole discussion into this. But timeline jumping is any time you make a big decision in your life, where you reach like a big fork in your road, so to say, and you continue to choose a different path, that will set you on a totally different timeline. So let's say you're dating somebody very, very seriously for a number of years, and then they ask you to marry them and you say no. So that decision to say no, you have reached a fork in the road. You could have continued on this path, getting married and having one sort of a life, but that no has taken you onto a completely different timeline. You have now jumped timelines. That is the way timeline jumping was shown to me. Okay, I hope that answers your question. It's anytime you get to a big fork in the road and you make a big notable decision, it changes your trajectory. Because if we're going to look at it this way, and we're going to say that we create our own reality, then anytime we make decisions, cooperative components will start to line up with the decision that we are making to support that new decision that we have come to. So it's almost like, imagine you are writing a book and you finish writing one chapter and you have all of those unwritten pages ahead of you. Something notable is going to happen with their character, but the character is you. So what direction do you want to take the next chapter into? You have blank pages. What are you going to write that is notable, that it's going to change your personal timeline? That is what timeline jumping is. Okay? All right, let's move on to, how do you call back parts of yourself? I think this is a great question. And I think this is actually from the video I had done on love, sex, and energetic entanglement, which is anytime we are engaging in sexual intercourse, we are exchanging energy tags with the person that we are engaging in the intercourse with. It's equal part where when a male is taking his male appendage out of a woman, he's taking part of her energy with him, but he is also, and this is very, very true, especially if you are not using any sort of protection, they're leaving actually something behind in you. So it's creating a very, very strong energetic tag, which is why, if you think about it, a lot of women become emotionally invested in the person that they are having a sexual relationship with. It's because of the energy tags, okay? So knowledge is power. I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do. I'm just sharing this so that you can make informed decisions. But the way in which you call the energy back to yourself, and also the way in which you release energy of other people as well, is by saying the following. So I do this specifically at the end of every day when I'm getting into my bed and I'm going to sleep. And I say the following. I am releasing the energy of anyone or anything not currently residing in my home. And the reason that I say that phrase is because it is covering, let's say you have pets, or you have children, or you have a spouse, or you have, I don't know, plants, whatever it is, right? So when you're going out and about in your day-to-day life, you are always surrounded by other people, and you are always around other energy. And when you come home, the example that I always use is like toilet paper stuck on the bottom of your shoe. When you come home, you may not know that that toilet paper is stuck on the bottom of your shoe, but you brought it home with you. And energy tags work very much the same way. So if you're out and about, going about your business, you come home, you are bringing those energy tags home with you. So a few things that you can do. Every time you shower, or you should be doing this every day, bathe or shower every single day if you have been out of your house, because you are accumulating energy tags. When you are bathing or showering, make sure that you're using a salt scrub, because those things will also slough off actual physical energy tags, because yes, they're physical as well, not just energetic, okay? You can say this in the shower. If you're alone and you don't plan on going back out, you can say it in the shower, that I'm releasing the energy of anyone or anything not currently residing in my home, right? Because you're used to the energy of the people that reside with you. So it covers the energy of the people that are in your home, but it releases all of the other energy that you have brought home with you that is not yours and does not belong to you. Because if we accumulate it too much, it can leave us feeling dysregulated, tired, confused, just nebulous within yourself, because you're bombarded with other people's energy, or other things' energy too. Okay. Now, the way that you call the energy back to yourself is similar, where you're going to be saying, I call back any parts of myself that I have left. You can fill in the blanks. So if you were at a club and you feel there's a lot of energy from the club, you're going to release that shit, and you're going to say, I call back any parts of myself that were left at this club, whatever it is. If you have just had relations with somebody, you want to make sure that afterwards you're calling back your energy as well. You can do this on a daily basis if you want to. It depends how much of yourself are you leaving around. You can do it on a weekly basis, monthly, whatever it is. It's, I would say, vitally important to release other people's energy and then to call back parts of yourself, okay? So do one before the other, release and then call back. I hope that has answered your question on ways that you can call your energy back to yourself. Okay, what do we want to tackle next? Let's talk a little bit about Celine Dion, because you guys have asked about her. What's going on with Celine? So she recently, very recently, came out and said she's suffering from something I think called stiff person syndrome. Okay, so let's kind of talk about how that happened. And I'm going to compare it to dietary lifestyles or lifestyle changes that somebody might make. So for example, let's say somebody they used to love to eat their bread and their pasta, and then they find out they're gluten intolerant and they can no longer eat all of that gluten. So by changing their dietary habits, it's going to, first of all, change the way that their body is functioning and the way that their body is operating, right? Like if someone's gluten intolerant, they're probably going to get like really bad stomach issues and stomach pain and anything associated with the stomach, right? So when they're cutting out the food that is no longer working for them, a lot of those physical symptoms that they had are going to start to clear up. In addition, they might also start to lose weight, and they might physically start to show up differently because of the fact that they have changed their diet. So let's look at it this way. How does that pertain to someone like Celine Dion? Celine Dion is high up in the club. How can we say that she's high up in the club? She's somebody who has been making music for years. She's a household name. She had a song in a hit movie, Titanic, which is an indication that she is in the club, because to achieve that level of success, you have to be in the club or they don't let you reach it. All right, so she's in the club. Now let's say we're going to acknowledge, and maybe this is a new concept for some of you, okay? And I can't go too much into it right now. Maybe I will at some point in the future. But people that are in the club have different dietary things that they can partake in. And if they, just like that person who had, let's say, was diagnosed with celiac disease and they had to cut things out of their diet, similarly too, when someone in the club has to cut certain things out of their diet, it's going to have implications on their body. So what is going on with Celine Dion is a manifestation of something that was in her diet no longer being available to her. That's number one. Number one. Number two, as the old systems are coming down, that's going to also include Hollywood and the music industry. While these systems are coming down, people that we know to be in the industry are going to start to disappear as well. So one way of getting out ahead of it or staggering it or making it look like it's actually not related to what it's related to for the people that are still sleeping, right? And they don't know what's going on. So as not to jar people too abruptly awake, there's more and more of these things are going to start to come out. So we're going to start to see actors retiring. They're going to start saying they're too old. They can't do movies anymore. We're going to see, look, just a couple of months ago, Bruce Willis came out and he said that he has a disease as well, so he cannot be in movies anymore. Katy Perry, who we are going to discuss, she said she's moving to Kentucky, right? So we're going to start to see either more and more of these things are going to come up where people are going to suddenly say, you know, they're moving or they're retiring or they're thising or they're thating. But for Celine, it's a way to get her first out of the public eye. And it's also a nod for those of us that know to say, hey, that's what it's actually connected to, okay? It's just a little like breadcrumb that we can pick up on and we can be like, got it. So that's what's going on with Celine Dion. Now, I'm going to actually connect Katy Perry and Britney Spears because I know somebody had also asked, is Britney okay? And then someone had asked, what's going on with Katy Perry's what looks like a malfunction? So I'm going to say like this. The short answer of is Britney Spears okay? I'm going to say she's okay because she's still on this side. But is she actually okay? So how do I approach this? And I'm going to, talk a little bit in code here. Let's say you were making a Xerox copy of something. So after you had the Xerox copy, you lost the original. And then every time you were making a copy, you were making a copy of a copy. And every time you made a copy of a copy, the quality was starting to disintegrate. Now, let's apply that to, as we have discussed in other videos, where certain people are owned, right? So it could be somebody like a Katy Perry, for example. She's owned. Her image is owned. Her voice is owned. Her songs are owned. Everything about her is owned. So to a certain extent, she's not herself really anymore. Now, let's say she had like a charity event and she was tired and she didn't want to go. So she would just be like, I'm not up for this. I'm going to use a body double. And that's very real. Okay. A few years ago, even, you can, I don't know if it's still online, you can probably even find like the royal family has been using body doubles and politicians use body doubles. It's a known thing. There's body doubles out there. Just look at like the way Prince Harry has looked recently. It's like, I don't know about that. Okay. So there could be a body double that looks like you. Oh, and here's a great one. Hillary Clinton actually has, there's a woman that won a national Hillary Clinton lookalike contest, okay? It's wild, I know. And there's a picture of Hillary standing with the person who won the lookalike contest, okay? So it's out there. We just have to do maybe a little bit of research into it, okay? All right. Now let's say though, it's not a charity event that a Katy Perry has to go to. Maybe it's a concert, or maybe it's a whole tour. Interesting. So then it wouldn't just be enough to use a body double. We would need to use a double that actually can sing like Katy Perry as well. I wonder how that would work. So what if there's a way of having body doubles that's actually from our own DNA, but where they don't have to go through the entire gestation period of growing to full adulthood in, I don't know how old she is, maybe 35. So it's not where you need to have that DNA replication of yourself as a double, but it doesn't have to age 35 years in 35 years. What if there was a way that there could be some sort of advanced way of aging someone? Now, what if the original was no longer around and you're making a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy? The quality is going to disintegrate with every copy that is being made. Catch my drift? That's what's going on with Katy Perry. Now, what's going on with Britney? Britney is still here, but what we are seeing is, even though she's so-called free, everything that she is putting out on social media makes it look like there is still a underlying mental health issue. And that is because the copies that are being made of Britney, the original Britney had too much mind control done to her. The mind started to disintegrate. So the copies that are being made from the original Britney are going to end up having the same manifestation of what original Britney is enduring. So unless original Britney starts to have, or get the help that she actually needs for the mental health issues that she has, at some point or another, the copies of her are all going to start to manifest the same symptoms. Again, imagine you're making a copy, right? Let's say you're making a photocopy of a hand, but the photocopy of the hand that you're making is missing a finger. How can I do this? How can I show it? So you are only, let's say, getting these 4 fingers and a nub of a 5th finger. Every copy that you make is going to have that same nub. It's the same thing in this case. We're making copies of somebody that is still here, but the manifestation of how she shows up is still connected to the original one. Okay? So I hope that answers the question about both Britney Spears and Katy Perry and what is going on with them. Okay? Here's another interesting question. Can passed over loved ones be our main guides? Yes, absolutely. So your guides can be any range number of people or beings. So one of them is your higher self, one of them is your guides, your guardian angels, and it can include passed over loved ones. So if you have lost somebody and you want to know if they are still with you or around you, if they're perhaps one of your guides, you can ask them to give you some sort of a sign that it is in fact them, and that they are in fact one of your guides. But it's not going to be like a being showing up out of thin air holding a sign that says, this is your sign. Because spirit, well, it has no limitations. It has some limitations, which I know sounds completely crazy. They don't have the same limitations we have with bodies because they are no longer in a body. But because they also don't have that, they can't like physically like just show up. So it's going to be a little bit more nuanced. So you can ask to be shown a sign that they are one of your guides and that they are here and that they are with you. Okay? Yes, they can read minds, but the best way to get an answer is to physically speak what you are looking for, the information that you want, and allow them to bring that in the way that they can bring it into you. And again, it's probably not going to be like a sign. It might be like a tingle on a part of your body. It might feel like there's a breeze, even though you're sitting inside and there's no air conditioning on. It might be, you might like hear like bells by your ears or something, right? All of these signs will come in a different way, but that is the way that they will bring into you once you ask to be shown the information that they are one of your guides. But yes, they can absolutely be one of your main guides. Actually, I'll even tell you, I had been talking to a mentor of mine. She does similar work to me. Out of nowhere, she just blurted out. She's like, by the way, you know, your grandmother is with you. And I was like, huh, what? She's like, yeah, and she started to tell me why my grandmother was suddenly coming through at this time and what it was connected to. And then I got a big upgrade in my abilities at the time that my grandmother came in. And what you always want to do when you're working with them is, first of all, set an intention, express gratitude that they are here, and then to specifically mention them. So once you've already asked for the sign and you know that they're here, when you're working with them, you want to set a positive intention. Like if you're looking into something for yourself, that you're calling upon them with an abundance of gratitude that they are there, and also stating that all information that comes in should be for your highest good. Okay, so set a positive intention, ask for them, mention them all by name, or if you know who all of them are already and you have a gaggle of them and you don't want to like call each and every one out, I call them my vibe tribe. You can call them whatever works for you. You can either continue to call them all out individually, or you can say, just asking for the guidance of my whatever. Okay, I hope that has answered your question, and if not, comment down below and let me know. Okay, this video is getting a little bit long. I actually feel like we might have to do like a part 2 to this, but let's see how much more we can get through. How do I answer this one while not answering it? Imagine there's a pizza shop and there's a gate around it. So is the gate real? Like, is that gate that's around the pizza shop, is it real? Or is it are we imagining it? No, it's not really real. So the question is that gate around the pizza shop real? Yeah, it's real. Just gonna leave that there. Going to slowly walk away from that. What do I want to jump into next? So first of all, the thing with Balenciaga, as I said before, I'm not going to discuss in this video. There's ample opportunity. There's so much there that's going to be unpacked in a future video. Okay, so that's going to be someplace else. We spoke about Katy. We spoke about Britney. Okay, let's do Anthony Bourdain, because this actually came up, and it's not enough to devote a whole video to. But basically what happened with Anthony Bourdain, what was shown to me was that Anthony was he was staying in a hotel. There was something going on outside of the hotel room, and it was enough to really get his attention. He opened up the hotel room door. He looked outside and he saw someone running down the hallway in a state of distress, looking for someone that could help them solve the problem of what had just gone on in their hotel room. And again, I'm speaking in code. So he knew about it, and he knew who it was. And I'm going to take it even a step further, and I'm going to say, not only did he know there was distress and he knew who it was, while this person was running down the hallway looking for help, he had left his hotel room and he had walked down the hallway and he had looked into the room. He saw what was going on that needed fixing. and now he knew about it. He did not, under any way, shape, or form, think that his knowing about it was going to get him embroiled or tangled up into something. But he was someone that had integrity. And he felt like it was his duty. So he was weighing the pros and the cons with people he knew, talking it out if this was something that he could discuss and be brought forward, and if it would actually make any sort of a positive improvement in the conditions of what were going on at that time. And when word got out that this was something that was going on, he was taken out. And the way that I was shown that he was taken, I think he was a bigger kind of dude. Like, he was really, really tall. So what was shown to me was that something like, I don't know, like a taser almost. He went into his room and he was tased, and that left him incapacitated. And then once he was tased and he was left incapacitated, he was hung, or made to look like it was a voluntary hanging, but it wasn't. And again, if you go back and you watch my video on Nick Carter, in that video I had actually spoken about the way in which people leave the world, celebrities leave the world. They're making a point of it. So anytime someone is hung, it's to keep the information stuffed inside of them, and it's to send a message out to anybody else that might want to speak out about it. The same fate will be awaiting you. So that's Anthony Bourdain. He had integrity, and he wanted to set things right. And unfortunately, other people in the club don't have integrity. So they will take you out to protect themselves. And that's what happened with Anthony Bourdain. Okay, hope that answers your question. How much more time do we have, and what can we get into? I'm kind of feeling like I'm being called to, it's in my other notebook. I might have to go back and get the notes. What happened to Anne Heche. So I'll give you a little bit of a rundown while I'm just trying to find my notes, because I actually, sorry that you don't see me and you just see like my shoulder, whatever. Okay, so I actually channeled this information right after she had crossed over. So it's from way, way, way back when, and that's why I don't remember it, and that's why I have to go back and I have to find it, and I have to read my notes of what I channeled at that time. But basically what happened with Anne Heche is that she, or at least what I got was that her crossing over was actually an accident. But okay, here we go. So she was wise beyond her years, very level-headed, and she could really clearly see for her family for who they were. She had an uncanny ability to move forward. So she could compartmentalize things in her life and continue to just move forward with it and not get weighed down with it. But she was very, very aware of the dysfunction that went on in her family, okay? Her family, I think at some point turned their back on her, like her mother and her sister, and that felt like a cut to her. So that energetically already started to, in addition to the energetic chinks in her armor that she had from her very dysfunctional childhood, her mother and her sister turning her back on her further created a very, very large energetic chink in her armor to where it was energetically disabling her, okay? So let's just look at that. It knocked her down and back energetically. She was therefore getting into relationships with older people to replace the relationship that she no longer had with her mother, and to try to create a healthy relationship to replace the one she did not have with her father. So she would date older men, she would date older women. The most notable one that she was in was with Ellen DeGeneres, and the way that it was shown to me was while they were in a relationship, Ellen was lying to her and doing a lot of very devious things behind her back, and Anne knew about it. She knew that that's what was going on, and they would get into horrible fights about it, but nothing would ever end up getting resolved because she was at an energetic disadvantage in comparison to somebody like Ellen that was more established at that point, and had not the same levels of energetic chinks in her armor, so she could actually exploit Anne's. Okay. Ellen had no emotions and no emotional empathy. She was without conscience. She was without conscience, not well, whatever, you know what I mean. I hope you do. Okay, so what Ellen was basically doing is she was extracting fuel from Anne for as long as she could. Okay, but she had no emotional empathy towards her. Anne loved her kids like crazy. She loved her kids. And actually, what I saw at that time was as soon as she crossed out of her body, every moment since then, she has been sitting with her boys by their bed. She cannot believe she is no longer in her body. She cannot believe it. She just wants to be, I know it's getting dark in here, sorry guys. I was having technical difficulty when I was trying to record this morning, and I couldn't record, so I'm doing it much later in the afternoon at my west-facing window. There we go, okay. But let's go back to Anne. So she loved her boys like crazy. She cannot even believe she's not in her body. She is not even devastated about the fact that she's not in her body anymore. She's devastated by the fact that she can't even be there for her boys. Okay. Now what actually happened with her is I saw she was distracted. She spilled something in her car and she glanced down to see what happened. And that's when her car hit the curb and jumped the curb and crashed into a house. Okay. It was because of a spill, like water or something spilled in her car. And she just glanced down and boom, jumped the curb and rammed into a house. She didn't even realize the severity of the situation of what was going on. And that's, I think, why she was in the car longer than anyone perhaps had realized, was she just didn't realize the severity of the situation. She was in shock, right? 1 minute she's just driving and she's on her way. The next minute her car hits a curb, bam, she crashes into a house and there's a fire. So she was very much in shock. She was not realizing the severity of the situation. She stayed in the car longer than she was safely supposed to be in the car, and that's what led to her demise. No, I did not see that there were any negative outside forces involved in this. Sorry if that's what you had maybe thought or had seen. It was shown to me completely random and as a complete accident, okay? Here, this is what I wrote, the final line. She was clumsy and she lacked situational awareness, and that's what led to her accident. Okay, that's Anne Heche. I'm trying to do this as quickly as I can because this video is getting hella long. We're nearing the 1 hour point. Okay, I think I have just 2 other things that I want to cover, and I'm trying to also catch like the last bits of sunlight before we lose it all together. Okay. So I am just going to cover Heath Ledger and Anne Heche. Heath Ledger and child stars. So I don't need my notebook for this. What was shown to me about child stars, sorry, this sounds awful, I know. Refer back to what I said on Celine Dion and the gate around the pizza shop. The way that children stars were looked at in Hollywood is, the word that came in is hors d'oeuvres. So if they were not consuming them the way hors d'oeuvres would be consumed, they were doing other things with them that they could extract their energy from, and just like the hors d'oeuvres would give them fuel, what they would extract would give them fuel in a different kind of a way. Okay? And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail with that because for anyone who's not familiar with it and you're hearing this for the first time, it could be quite shocking. And also, I'm just trying to keep things on the up and kosher on this channel as much as I can, okay? So read between the lines. Oh, I had Casey Anthony also. Oh, I hope I can get all of this in. Okay, Heath Ledger, Casey Anthony. Can I do both? Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to do a brief rundown on Casey Anthony, okay? Question came in, did she actually take her daughter off the earth plane? And is she telling the truth about the abuse she endured by her father? Let's do this very, very quickly. First of all, I'm just going to say I did not like looking into Casey Anthony's energy. It's very dark. The energy of her family is very dark. I could not wait to get out of her energy. That's number one. Okay. Number 2. So the way Casey's energy was shown to me is, imagine a monkey swinging on a monkey vine, just swinging from one vine to the other vine to the other vine, not taking time to slow down, not taking time to feel her own body or check in with herself or have any sort of an internal dialogue. So when she found out she was pregnant, she was like, oh, cool, I'm gonna be a mom, whatever. It didn't in any way, shape, or form change her life. There was no introspection. It didn't mature her. She didn't grow up from the experience. In fact, she wanted to continue to live her life as she had before she became a mother. So to that end, what was shown to me was that she was giving things to her daughter that would knock her daughter out. But as with a lot of things, if anyone has ever taken any sort of an anything, you know that your body builds up a tolerance to it and you have to continue to give it more and more. And what happened is, in one of the times when she was doing something, it went too far, her daughter crossed over, someone in the family, maybe you can use your imagination on who, but someone in the family helped her do whatever she did to dispose of the body, which was later found, okay? Now, in regards to was she lying about her father abusing her, I'm gonna say like this. I saw a lot of covert sexual abuse in that household, not overt. I didn't see actual physical abuse from the father to the daughter, but I did see, for example, if she was getting undressed to change, her father might be peeking in the doorway. If she was taking a shower, her father might be watching her. Things like that, covert, but still leaves an impact on somebody, okay? And here's another way of looking at it. This is, I think, the most pivotal thing that I want to say about this family. Energy creates a similar kind of an energy. Unless we do the internal work to make a conscious decision to raise our vibration and change our energy, dark energy will continue to reproduce dark energy. Light energy will produce lighter energy, okay? So, because energy is like a boomerang. And think about the energy that you bring into the world when you procreate and have a child. What is the energy of the person at that time? If you're having two darker energied parents bringing a child into the world, and then the parents are remaining in a dark, dense energy, they're going to produce a child that's living in a dark, dense energy. And that is what happened with Casey Anthony, okay? There was a lot of dark, dense energy in the household. Not that I necessarily saw anything acted upon, but it was felt. Okay. Casey Anthony is not, she's an opportunist. She's not somebody that would not lie to save herself. We are losing light rapidly. So what I saw is that Casey Anthony was lying about the sexual abuse because in the time that she said those allegations, she thought it would be the most advantageous for herself, her reputation perhaps, anything like that to say that, okay? She's an opportunist. She would say whatever she would need to save herself or to paint herself in a different picture or in a different light. That is what I picked up for Casey Anthony, okay? And I definitely also believe she's a pathological liar as well. And I'm not even sure, I'm gonna turn this light on because I really wanna talk about Heath Ledger as well. I'm not even sure, I actually think she believes the lies that she tells, okay? That's for you, A New Day, because you're asking what that was. It's actually just a wall sconce. I hope that bought us a few more minutes because I have Heath Ledger and I think he's actually very, very cool. Okay, so Heath Ledger. I know I'm talking really, really fast at this point. I want to get this info in. Okay, so Heath Ledger. What was shown to me with Heath Ledger is that his career, and I know he had been in movies before that. Don't come at me and be like, he was already a big star. His career was getting ready to pop. It was getting ready to go to the next level because he was, I think, just finishing filming for, I forgot what version it was. It was one of the, I think, was one of the movies in the Dark Knight trilogy, the Batman trilogy. His career was about to pop big time and it was going to take off and it was going to go to the next level. What do you think happened at that point? He was asked to make a sacrifice for his career, as they will sometimes do in the club. He was asked to make a sacrifice. Go back, you can Google this and you can look and you can see, again, thought-provoking content. He was, you can go back and you can see how many celebrities have had somebody notable around them pass away. Either children or parents. Jennifer Hudson, holy fucking hell. Her, what was it? Her mother, her sister, and her nephew. All of them at one time. And she won an Academy Award. Okay, so context here. So he was asked to make a sacrifice. Who do you think that sacrifice may have been? Again, I'm not going to spoon feed it to you. He loved this sacrifice. What was going to be the sacrifice? More than he loved his potential career. It wasn't worth it. He was beginning to see the price for his career to jump to the next level in the stratosphere was a sacrifice. And he said, no. So what he did, instead of letting them take him out or letting them do away with him and create a copy of him, a la a Katy Perry, he took himself out. He took himself off the earth plane because he said, no, to here, but no further. And where have we seen a reveal like this in movies? What's the name of that movie? The Devil's Advocate, with Keanu Reeves and who played his father? Al Pacino. Watch that movie. But in the end of the movie, basically, what we see, I'm gonna have to do a spoiler on this, but it really, really ties in really, really nicely to this, and it's gonna tie up a lot of loose ends, so I have to give it away. But basically, in that movie, what happened was, all of these horrible things start to happen, and the Keanu Reeves character starts to realize he's going to lose his soul in the process of him becoming the best and the brightest kind of an attorney in New York. So what he does to make sure that that doesn't happen is he commits suicide at the end of the movie, so that way he can stop all of these other horrible things from happening. And that is what Heath Ledger chose to do. He could see the writing on the wall, just like the Keanu Reeves character could see the writing on the wall. He came to realize, in order for me to have all of these things and all of this success, what am I going to lose along the way? I'm going to lose, here I won't give everything away, but he just was looking back and he's like, holy fucking shit, it's not worth it. Heath Ledger did the same thing. It wasn't worth it. So he took himself out in a way where he could not be replicated and where no sacrifice could be taken out on his behalf, and where he would not be taken out either. He kind of took the power back into his own hands. Okay, so I think we're gonna end the video here. We are rapidly losing daylight. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. If you want more AMAs in the future, comment down below. Let me know that you've enjoyed this and you want more of these. It's little bite-sized channeled information that came through to answer your guys' questions when the questions merited shorter responses. So as always, 2 things. Number 1, take what resonates, leave the rest behind. Number 2, stay in the high vibration. Okay? Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.